Well, more than 130 imams and religious leaders are refusing to perform the funeral prayer for the London attackers. This is a move that has been praised by our Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson.
I was actually encouraged when I heard on the news this morning that a number of imams in London have condemned these attackers and said they will not perform prayer services over their funerals, which means they're condemning their souls. And that is what has to be done. Now, only the Muslim faith can handle this.
Well, should efforts to end these despicable acts of violence start with the Muslim community? Dr. Porcher is a former NYPD lieutenant and a U.S. Army veteran. He joins us now. Thank you so much, Doctor, for coming in this morning. We appreciate it.
That's always a pleasure.
That was a very interesting soundbite from Mr. Tillerson there that I think speaks volumes about whether or not we want to just try and fight this thing down or actually kill the cancer by getting in there and forcing other Muslims to push these people out and eradicate it. What did you think of that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can't bomb our way out of radical Islam. It needs to be something that happens internally. And I really commend the imams from coming forth and stating that they're not going to set prayers for these individuals. It represents a seismic shift in what we've seen in the past in connection with radical Islam and our society here in the West.
Yeah, because just bombing will just suppress it. But even if you just leave a couple people still there, they will then start to rebuild it. You need to actually, you got to root out the exact problem. It has to come from the inside. I thought that was a wonderful soundbite by Mr. Tillerson there. Let's go on to how do you root out the problem here in this country, and how do you get into these, you know, as far as surveillance goes, what makes a bigger difference? Is it surveilling these mosques, or do we need something more? I think you believe that there needs to be more done.
Well, it needs to be a combination of things. We can't have a monolithic approach to this. It needs to be multifaceted. One of the things that I'm a strong proponent of is having operatives that are inside of the mosque coupled with undercover officers that are gaining this intelligence. We need to have this symbiotic relationship between the members of the mosque and law enforcement, and that's what's going to propel us forward in having a better state in connection with this radical Islam, because the key is the eradication of it.
Right. And post 9/11, we had, you know, Mayor Bloomberg in charge doing surveillance on the mosques, which, you know, sounds like a great idea if you want to eradicate a problem. But you still say that that wasn't even far enough, that you have to get inside, that people have to be in there talking to the people to figure out where it is. That surveillance alone isn't enough.
Absolutely.
But even surveillance, it got a lot of flack. I mean, a lot of people had a big problem with just surveilling.
Well, a lot of that is the incoming mayor, de Blasio, chose to eradicate that. But it wasn't a fruitful tactic. Once again, it goes back to we need to have that multifaceted approach of internal and external surveillance in these mosques to gain this intelligence, because ultimately it helps us as law enforcement protecting the free world and us as United States citizens.
Do you really, I mean, I just wonder what your personal opinion is when an imam says that I will not bless this body. I mean, is that condemnation of the soul? And is that the best way to say, hey, this is not the way this religion works, and this is an abomination, and this is a bastardization of this religion, what these people are doing?
Absolutely, it's a start.
Yeah.
These radical Islamic jihadists fear going to hell. They don't fear dying.
Right.
They're all for extending their souls to Allah. However, the one thing that they do fear is being cast to hell, and these imams are stepping up to the plate. And that's what we need, and that's the necessary component in countering this radical Islam, because we can't, like I mentioned earlier, we can't bomb our way out of this.
Right.
It needs to happen from within, and I credit these imams from taking that step forward, and hopefully this can set a precedence moving forward.
And you made a very important point there. When you're trying to fight a war, and I think it was President Obama that said it, when you're trying to fight people that are willing to die, when they're willing to go into something and bomb people and die, it's so hard to fight that. But you have to somehow force them to think that, okay, you're not going to get your end game is not going to be what you think. The imams have to come in, the religious leaders, the other Muslims have to come in and say, hey, listen, you do this, you're not going to your heaven with your 72 virgins.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
Doctor, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
Always a pleasure.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.